What's up guys, it's Meg and it's that time of the week again for our weekly Walker Talk. Today we are going to talk about Glenn. Is he alive? Is he dead? We don't actually know. And I'm kind of pissed off about it. I also want to say, can we please not post filming spoilers on this channel at all? I feel like you guys know that I don't like spoilers, but there's a lot of new people, so I don't like spoilers. I don't want to know who was filming with who. I don't want to know sets. I don't want to know any of it. Nothing. Please don't tell me. So, is Glenn alive or is he dead? I feel like the fan base is like 60-40 on this. 60 that he's alive, 40 that he's dead. Let me know what you guys think in the comments after watching this video. For me personally, when I first watched this episode, obviously I was completely devastated. I was so shocked. I had predicted that Nicholas would die, and in my head, the exact way Nicholas died was exactly how I anticipated it. I anticipated him going down, you know, taking himself out or voluntarily like jumping in or something like that, where he would die and Glenn would be saved. I, under no circumstances, thought that he would also take Glenn down with him. It was a rather small dumpster that they were standing on, so it is definitely feasible that Glenn, being so shocked that Nicholas just took his life right in front of him, you know, would have been taken unaware as Nicholas's body then fell on top of him. So the way he falls off the dumpster, it very much appears that Nicholas falls on top of him and Glenn is going down with Nicholas's body on top of him. Now, I freaked out, but upon the second time watching, and now I've watched it 3 times, plus a bunch of like rewinds, fast forwards through that part, I feel like there is a good possibility that Glenn could survive this. And I feel like it would be a very slight, yes, he could get out of this. So the fact that his intestines are being ripped out, from the very beginning, I thought Nicholas fell on top of him. Come on, Glenn, you know, get up. And I was so sure that he was going to figure out some way to get up, but he didn't. And we see all this, but to me, it really looked like it was higher, not higher like this on his, you know, like guts are coming out right here, but like if he was laying down and this is Glenn's body, this is Glenn's head, it seemed like the walkers were pulling the intestines like higher up. By higher, I mean like above his chest, stomach, as if Nicholas was on top of him. And the entire time, like, I was just in my mind going, please let that be what's happening. And then of course we don't get any kind of confirmation, you know, as to yes or no. And we know that The Walking Dead likes to fuck with us. They do. They love this kind of stuff. They love making us freak out. Look at Beth and how long they drug out Beth's reappearance on the show. You know, this crazy thing happens to her. She was, you know, somewhat fan favorite at the time because of her and Daryl and all of the changes and them having all these scenes together. So she was this, you know, a huge fan favorite, and they took her out and made us wonder for a really long time what happened to her. Will we ever see her again? The same thing with Carol. You know, we saw Carol drive off into the distance and we didn't know at the time if we would ever see her again. And then when we watch The Talking Dead, you know, there's always these things like we will see them eventually again. And when in watching The Talking Dead for this episode, we did in fact find out that we would get some type of closure. And that is why, you know, because we don't know for certain if Glenn is alive or dead, that is why he was not, you know, obviously on The Talking Dead. They want to keep us hanging. They want us to speculate. And they're probably, quite frankly, going to draw this out for a while. I don't even think, you know, next week is going to be Morgan's episode. It's a 90-minute Morgan episode, strictly about him. We won't see anybody else. Then the week after that, I have a feeling it will be back at Alexandria. Now, at that point in time, we may see Maggie go and look for Glenn, but I don't know that we will get confirmation yet. I really feel like they're going to make us wait a while. They want us to come up with all of our theories and really stew about it. So, as far as what I think, there has been, you know, a lot of talk about whether or not he could have pulled himself underneath the dumpster that was right there. Now, my initial thought is if he is capable of pulling himself under the dumpster, perhaps there is some kind of sewer manhole there underneath that he could slide into. I mean, obviously it would be perfectly placed, but having him just go under the garbage can and lay there and hope that he doesn't make any noise and that, you know, the walkers don't notice that he's under there, seems a little bit unrealistic. But if by chance underneath the dumpster is a manhole, well, he could go underneath that and, you know, be down there. So that is a possibility. It is just a possibility that he could have just pulled himself under the dumpster. It seemed like there was somewhat room. It looked like there was more room when we saw them running up to the dumpster. However, once Glenn's head was laying next to it, it looked like there was a little bit less. And also, I want to point out that the fact that even if he wasn't getting eaten, let's say it was Nicholas getting eaten, he hasn't gotten bit yet, even though he's got like 50 walkers on top of him. Not only the pressure of a dead body laying on top of you, but a bunch of walkers pressing down on that body while trying to eat. I mean, that's a lot of weight to be on a person, and to be able to pull yourself, you know, out from under that weight would be very difficult, I think. We saw back when Nicholas tried to kill Glenn, we saw Glenn underneath a bunch of walkers. The walkers had piled on top of him, and it's the same kind of thing. He really struggled to get out from underneath these walkers, and that's kind of the reality of this, is even if he can fit under the dumpster, can he pull himself under there, underneath all of the weight of the walkers and a dead body, without getting bitten in the process? And part of this, you know, I immediately got a flashback to Beth in this episode where we saw her again, but they still killed her off. You know, we still lost her in the end. And that's what I'm worried about here. I feel like with the hints of Maggie being potentially pregnant and all of the little kind of things that we saw in the episode, so him looking at Herschel's pocket watch and him quoting Beth's words, "We all have a job to do." And kind of throughout this episode, we're hearing certain things that make us think, well, maybe he's not going to make it. We also heard him call Rick a dumbass. And that is a flash, you know, a tribute to the very first episode of The Walking Dead. I believe it was the first episode when Rick is stuck in the tank and there's no possible way out, and he hears Glenn on the radio, and that's our first introduction to Glenn, and he says, "Hey dumbass, yeah, you in the tank." And I love that moment. It was such a throwback to that very first episode and our first introduction to Glenn, and the fact that it reminds us of the fact that he can get out of quite a few situations. So, you know, I feel like there's a little bit of hope there. Hopefully they don't let him survive that only to then be killed again by something else. That would suck. I feel like I went on a tangent there, and now I can't remember what I was talking. What was my point in that? Well, I've lost it now. Oh, there was a lot of foreshadowing. That's what I was talking about with the pocket watch and the different phrases, the iconic phrases that we heard, you know, throughout this episode. Something from Beth. We heard, which I'll talk about in my review, but we heard Michonne talking to David, and David saying how he met his wife, and he was basically, we were seeing Michonne remember Andrea and how Andrea was her first friend, and she really gave her a reason to survive when she didn't feel like surviving any longer, which we'll talk about that more. But there were a lot of little tributes here. We saw Herschel, we saw Andrea, we saw Beth, you know? So let me know what you guys think. I definitely think there's a possibility that they could bring Glenn back. They like screwing with us. I will say right now, I'm gonna be pissed if they draw this thing out, don't give us confirmation for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, even 4 weeks, only to find out that he is indeed dead. That would piss me off, I think, more than anything. If they were gonna kill him, just kill him. Just be done with it. Let us grieve. As far as, I've seen a lot of comments about people saying that wasn't a meaningful death. A character like Glenn deserves to go down better. I want to point out that the thing I love about this show is that it is so realistic. Realistically, if we were in an apocalypse, the walkers, they don't give a fuck about how awesome you are at killing walkers, about how great you are at getting out of situations. They don't care how long you've survived. If they have the opportunity to bite you, they will. So we can't give every single awesome character and amazing epic death. It just doesn't work that way. So if Glenn is indeed dead, I think it's great that he was taken out like that. We can't have all of our characters, even long-term characters, having these great epic deaths. People die all the time in this kind of situation. They just get bit and you're dead. I mean, that's your death sentence. So to have every death be like this crazy awesome way to go out is just kind of unrealistic to me. And that's what I like about this show, is that not everyone has a meaningful death. So I'm sure there will be a lot of you that disagree with me on that. I think he could be alive. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. I'm gonna shut up now. We can talk about it more there. Let me know. Do you think Glenn is dead or is he alive? I will see you guys in my actual review of the entire episode in my next video. I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.